Okay, we were just talking about topographic maps and maps for hiking and going into the outdoors, and it ended up taking 10 minutes, so I figured I'd break it there and then talk about street maps and road maps. I guess I'll start out with two of the road maps that I usually carry around with me, and no two maps are created equal, and that's sort of the good and bad of maps, I suppose. You can tell this one here that I'm unfolding has been used quite a bit. It's about to fall apart. They're disposable as well. At some point they will wear out. What I wanted to show here though was the differences. This one has real good detail about where the state parks are, the boundaries, a lot of information like the Kitt Peak National Observatory and Cochise Stronghold and Tombstone, and lots of information that you might be interested in. I wouldn't say as a tourist, but basically as someone who's out looking for something to do that day. Where this one is a little more down and dirty as far as it notes each separate exit and entrance with their exit number. And again, when you're just getting somewhere from here to there, knowing what's in between is interesting, but knowing which exit you want to exit off the highway on, that's a lot more important to me. So no maps are created equal, and unless you find one that just has every single thing you like on it, you sometimes end up having a couple. And they're not real big, so what I like to do is keep one in a pack, which is behind the seat or in the trunk, and then I keep one in the glove box. So one's handy, and then there's a spare available. For the cost of maps, it's definitely worth having more than one. As far as city maps, when I first moved out to Tucson, I didn't grow up here. I needed to find my way around, and I bought one of these, which is, I would consider it like a cab driver's reference or a delivery driver's reference, real estate reference. It basically is just street maps of every little part of Tucson and just about every little street in that area. They take the set town, they chop it up into these quadrants, and those quadrants are the pages. Fairly easy to find something. I know I'm going to that part of town, that's page 138. I flip to page 138. Or if I know I need a street, I find it on the list here and it tells me, okay, that's on page 108. Flip over to page 108 and I found it. I don't know if you can tell in the video, this one's about dead. This one was from 1990. I don't know why I keep it around. This one is 2001 edition. I bought it a few years after 2001 so I could get it a little cheaper. The streets do change, but it's not such a big deal for me anymore. I pretty much know where I'm going most of the time. This is more of a reference. The reason I bought this one though is it came with a CD, and that allows me to have the same street map on the computer, which is pretty handy because nowadays most of the time I'm driving around I have a laptop with me. So that's just a couple of options for street type of maps for one city. And then this is another option. This one's kind of neat. It was from a real estate agent, and it's two parts. This one is just a giant map of Tucson, and it's literally got every street listed on it. Around the edges there's a grid system, and that's what this part is for. This is the street guide, street index for that map, and no matter what street you're looking for, you can get the grid coordinates, F3, F7, and figure out what street or what part of Tucson you might be looking for by the street. And at the house, this is a little easier to deal with. Sometimes it can be a little more impressive if a street stops and starts to see it all on one page than to go thumbing through a bunch of pages in a book. But obviously the books are a lot more portable. Another map that I've got out here is from a cross-country trip we took right out of high school, and did a couple of those over the years. I like to put my map, my route on the map with a highlighter. And this is the map that we used for that trip, and it got pretty used up during the trip. It got rained on a few times, blew away in the wind probably a few times, but it lasted through the whole trip. And I just went ahead and paper clipped it up as sort of remembrance of that trip. If I ever felt like it, I could open it up and take a look at the route and get some ideas of where we went. This isn't so much street maps, but it happens to be in with my group of maps, and I'm not throwing them away. This is a bunch of topographic maps of the area where I grew up. Got a big map of Russia here, and then kind of interesting map of Korea. And this is what we used to use when we were kids, learning how to use a topographic map. Since we had to learn, it was fun to learn on a map from someplace else. And that's the neat part about maps too, is that you can get maps at this point pretty much for everywhere in the world. Now this is a big map. It just happens to be in with my big atlases. I usually keep these behind the seat in the truck in one of those big pockets. and because they're so large, they protect this, which is a topographic map of one of the mountains around here where we go hunting. And not so much that it's a road map, but it does show the different trails. This is an area that there are no roads, so this is nice to have in the truck, just so that if we're driving up to a trailhead we might not be familiar with, we see what roads are available, and you know, it helps steer us in, having the the coordinates and whatnot to know where those trailheads are. And I keep it nice and big so that it stays in good shape, and I just kind of tuck it between a couple of these large books. Now these large format books I touched on in the last video. I keep these in the truck all the time. This one is just topographic maps for the entire state. This one is topographic maps as well as maps of public land and some street maps and just some resources for the outdoors. I bought these fairly cheap a couple of years after they were printed in order to get them a little cheaper. But again, these aren't small. They're what, 11 by 14 format or something, and but you know, when you put them in the back of the seat of the truck, you know, they're getting in the way that bad. This one was what, $10. It went down to $5 on sale, and then I bought it a year or two later and got it almost free. I think it was $1 literally. And what I like about this one is it's just the whole country, the whole United States, Canada, and Mexico. If for some reason I had to jump in the truck, you know, a family emergency or something, and head out, of course I could stop at the different you know, travel resources along the way for each state, but you know, if I didn't want to stop at a tourist center, I can just plow through. The interstates don't really change for the most part. The only thing I'd like to see on this that's not here, and it might not be current or easy to put on a map, would be some radio stations, just to have an idea of what station to listen to for you know, traffic. But it's easy enough to just run the dial. So anyway, these are nice resources to have. Again, it's not something you'd want to plan a trip with necessarily, but it is nice to be able to have something with you for a larger trip if necessary. So those are some of the road maps that I keep around. They can be a little bit big, so I don't keep them with me all the time. I do keep these 3 in the truck. Might be a little redundant to have 2 sets of topographic maps, but if I have to rip a page out or something, I'd rather have the maps with me than not have them. As far as the city maps, I don't take these around with me. They sit on the bookshelf, but if I needed to, they could come with. They're spiral bound, which is really nice. I wish these large ones were spiral bound as well. They don't take up much more room, but they definitely make the materials last a lot longer. Road maps, though, I'm sure there's lots of more information out there, but that's just some information that I figured I'd put into this video. Next up, we'll do some of the resources, and our other videos had to do with the gear and with the topographic maps.